Hello, everyone. I'm Zihan Schilder, co-chair of the IADC Technology Committee, and I would like to thank you all for joining our webinar today. We'll get started with the presentation shortly after a couple of quick housekeeping items. First, by participating in this webinar, you are granting your permission to be recorded and for the recording to be distributed as AIADC and the Washington Architectural Foundation may choose. Second, we will have time for Q&A after the presentation. Please type any questions that you may have into the Q&A box, and our moderators will relay those to the panel after the presentation concludes. And once again, thanks for joining our VR Roundtable today. We have invited leaders in the VR industry, in VR for the AEC industry to share their thoughts about the value of VR in AEC and their predictions about the future of virtual reality for collaboration and design. We would also like to thank Smith Group for sponsoring today's event. If you would like to know more about our committee or get involved, please check us out on social media, and you can also look us up on AIADC's website, and feel free to reach out if you would like to join us. We have one more upcoming event before the end of the year on Rhino Inside, presented by McNeil's very own developers. So please check that out if you're curious about McNeil's newest addition to Rhino. And now, without further ado, I would like to hand it over to our committee members, who are also the moderators for today's Roundtable, Razan Altaraifi and David Firsch.
Right. Thanks, Sihan. So we have a great group of people today. I'm pretty excited. The way that today's event is going to go is we're going to start with a 10-minute introduction presentation by each company. And then after that, we're going to go into a roundtable discussion and Q&A. Highly encourage everyone to put your questions and comments into the chat box and into the Q&A box, and we'll try and address as much of those as we can. We have a packed schedule, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and begin with the first company, which is Arkio. Go ahead and take it away, gentlemen.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ilmar, and with me is my colleague, Johan.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
So today we're going to talk about Arkio, a new design tool that can make the design process more efficient and collaborative than possible using today's flat screen design tools. We basically want to give designers superpowers. We put together a short demo video, including a virtual interview with Neil Reindel at Perkinsville, one of our earliest beta testers. Johan, let's play the video.
Okay.
Hi, and welcome to Arkio. Nowadays, most of our design work is done in 3D, but we still use 2D screens when creating these models. We now have technologies to experience our design in 3D using virtual and augmented reality. But when we want to try out something new, we have to go back to our 2D devices. With Arkio, we want to reimagine the architectural design process when not bound by 2D screens, where you can use your hands to model in 3D just like physical model making. We can create geometry, cut into it and distort it, just pick up and glue objects together, and even throw things away. We see Arkio as a 3D tracing paper, where you can rapidly prototype ideas on existing imported 3D contexts like Rhino, SketchUp, and Revit models. Arkio's modeling engine is similar to parametric BIM tools like Autodesk Revit. Using our new integration with Revit, you can easily load your latest projects to Arkio, create new volumetric suggestions or sketches that can be exported back as native Revit geometry and masses to continue documenting your design. The fun part is that this can be done from any scale and is fully collaborative, so we can invite others to join us to present or explore new ideas using your existing 3D models. Hi Omar, can you maybe make that tower a bit wider?
Sure, something like this.
Let me move it a bit more to the front. Now let's show you how Arkio works. Creating shapes in Arkio is simple. To create a solid shape, I pull them up, and to create voids, I push them down into the underlying shape. Now the best part is that this is all fully collaborative.
I can even use my hands, no controllers needed. Let me just adjust the shape a little bit.
As I work, you can see how shapes snap to the edges. As I pick up shapes, they also align with other shapes, making working with Arkio even easier than physical model making.
Let's increase the height a little bit.
In Revit, we can easily export a 3D scene to Archeo using our Revit plugin. This allows us to select the level of detail to reduce the amount of polygons for working with models on mobile devices like the Oculus Quest or phones and tablets. Let's get rid of this building and bring in the Revit model. Here you can see the model available in my library that will be placed on the table using the Revit Nord coordinates. Once we have imported the Revit model, we can sketch on top of it and explore some new design options.
How about adding an extension to the building over here? It's possible to work in any scale in Archeo. When you want to do more detailed work, you just scale down to a comfortable size.
I see there's a new Revit model available. Let's update all the models in the scene to their latest version. From human scale, I can experience the design from the park much better. Here Hilmar is creating a new tower with automatic floors.
One of the main features of Archeo is that you can join a design meeting even if you don't have a VR headset, as Archeo also works on desktop PCs, phones and tablets. Here you can see how a user with an iPad can see everything that's going on inside the meeting as you sculpt the new tower a little bit. Another key feature is that you can add program tags to individual floors and immediately see total area sizes and how close you are to meeting your program requirements. You can also see these updating on the iPad as the tower is being worked on, and even edit program tags on the iPad.
On the iPad, I can easily navigate around the model and communicate design suggestions with the users inside VR using sketches. Note how the area totals change as Hilmar edits the tower in VR. Design options are another powerful feature of Archeo. Simply make a duplicate of the model, try out some other ideas, and toggle back when you want to compare them. It's even possible to create entire towers, move and rotate them around from a non-VR device. And by placing the model on a table in AR, using a phone or tablet, you can see everyone working in the scene and even sketch or model something in AR. Creating spaces while experiencing them from human scale is really powerful. And these validated spatial objects can be used again once loaded back as native Revit geometry. And of course, we can play with the time of day to get a feel for how the light will flow into that new meeting space. In Archeo, you can also work with parametric hollow shapes that have a fixed wall thickness. These can be used to quickly prototype out some interior spaces by adding walls and carving new window openings. I can also make edits on this volume, and here you can see the constraints at work and how all the geometry is live updated to my edits. As you can see, this is pretty powerful, and I can explore different design ideas without having to redo the modeling. Once you're happy with your design, we can export the design options to 3D or native Autodesk Revit. Once in Revit, we can use the Archeo plugin to import that scene to generic models or mass families that can be used as a base for facades. Everything created or loaded in Archeo will be converted to Revit objects aligned with the original model. The volumes in Archeo get converted to native geometry, and Archeo props like trees, people and furniture get created as native Revit families. Also, the iPad sketches get loaded and the program data and materials are contained in the geometry. Here we can see the new entrance that can directly be used as a design reference, including a reception and sketch for the missing door. Even custom imported 3D objects, like this chair, will be converted to native Revit families, so they can easily be updated.
So joining us today is Neil Reindl, who's an urban designer at Perkinsville in Chicago and one of our earliest beta testers. Hi Neil and welcome to Archeo.
Hi Hilmar, good to see you. Great to be here.
So tell me, you've been using Archeo for a while now during our alpha and beta releases and giving us great feedback along the way. Can you talk about the main benefits of using a collaborative design tool like Archeo in your workflow?
Yeah, the beauty of Archeo in a lot of ways is kind of how quickly we can get feedback in the design work we're doing. Our work typically straddles multiple scales, so we're working at master planning scale and then down into building and public spaces very quickly. And tools like Archeo allow us to move through those scales quickly and be able to kind of design both looking down and looking around inside of those spaces. operability of it to be able to do program studies is incredibly helpful. Oftentimes we have to work in a combination of Excel and Rhino or Revit while we're kind of developing our program sheets, and Archeo allows us to in real time kind of assess the square footage of our program types and relative to our building massings, which is incredibly helpful. And then being able to take that into Revit and be able to articulate and develop the Archeo massing in Revit is great as we go through these urban design projects from concept design to final presentation.
Now, this year has been very unusual for everyone due to the COVID-19 pandemic and so much work happening remotely, of course. What advice can you give people that want to get started with real-time collaborative design and VR?
Well, I think one of the beauties of Archeo is how accessible it is. Being able to use just an Oculus Rift or a Quest to be able to get into the software is incredibly helpful and really easy. I mean, all you really have to do is pop the headset on and you're good to go. You're able to access all the tools within Archeo, and it's a relatively simple interface to get used to. Being able to use the iPad or a Wacom tablet also help with the kind of sketching and ideation of project work. But I think the most beautiful thing about the tool is that in a world where we've all been so disconnected for so long, Archeo lends itself to be a bridge between the virtual and the physical world, and we're able to kind of hold charrettes and design collaborations again in a way that's very familiar to how we used to meet in person. So being able to just put a headset on and be in a room with your collaborators is great, both for project engagement and project design work.
Thanks, Neil. Great to have you with us, and hope to see you again soon here inside Archeo.
Thanks for having me, Homar.
So that brings us to the end of the presentation.
As you can see, Archeo enables you to collaborate easily using any device, which ultimately saves you time, reduces cost and misunderstandings. And our close integration with Revit opens up many interesting ways to collaborate and get work done faster than possible before.
We'd like to thank Neil for joining us for this presentation and the DC Tech Committee for inviting us to present. Archeo is currently in free beta and we'd love to get your feedback. So please sign up at archeo.is and let us know what you think. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, guys. Next up, we have Iris VR.
Great. Love that interface, Archeo. You guys have such nice polish on that. It's always so fun to watch the modeling happening. But I'm not pitching Archeo. I'm going to talk about Iris VR. So I'm Shane Scranton. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Iris VR. We started this back in 2014 with sort of the first headsets coming to market, and are focused really squarely on VR workflows for collaboration in AEC. So I think it's worth starting. This is a VR webinar on really the core fundamentals of where we see VR adding value in the process. I think something that we are probably all aligned on this call that you guys will hear is there's so many opportunities for greater productivity in construction. There are so many places where communication happens in 2D or on screen, when instead, if you are able to see something true to scale, you can unlock a lot more of the project earlier and make decisions faster. So that can result in many fewer errors, much better communication, accelerating decisions and making decisions much more quickly, streamlining issue resolution, being able to figure out what's happening and come to a conclusion on how that's fixed. And of course, especially now in COVID, being able to collaborate remotely. And so what we do at Iris is we are a software company, and we are building standalone software that works out of the box, plugs into all the leading 3D file formats in architecture and construction. And then through sort of a data optimization process, we pull that into a project library that's either local or synced with your project cloud. And then from there, we launch into a immersive real-time collaboration space where you can join others and your colleagues and make those decisions really quickly. And a big part of our approach here has been making that super fast. So we focused for a long time on how do you do this really quickly in a way where you're not really waiting around to see your files in a headset, whether that's on desktop in like desktop VR or in standalone VR like the Oculus Quest. So our main focus from the very beginning till now has really stayed largely the same. It needs to be super fast, really comfortable. The stakes are higher in VR, has to be really easy to navigate around. But on top of that, as more and more firms become serious about their VR deployments, security becomes really one of the main features that teams are requesting, as well as scalability within those deployments. And of course, VR is really used in the most important parts of the process along the way. It needs to be reliable and needs to work every time. And then that's the foundation. On top of that, we're looking at specific workflows that we can build into the tool that really answer very specific needs of you guys and of the end users. So collaboration, of course, making coordination really easy, and then making design reviews really streamlined. So as we've seen over the last 6 years, VR and Iris VR drives real cost savings on projects. Especially now on the collaboration front, many customers are able to reduce travel and the need to actually coordinate in person. That can happen more remotely. I think a really important piece of this that we're going to talk about a lot today is coordination and being able to catch errors, but even more importantly, resolve those errors earlier and make those changes digitally rather than physically. There's a lot of cost savings and potential in there to drive efficiency to the project. And then of course, this is sort of a softer value, but it's really important, especially for design, is being able to communicate design intent more effectively and to communicate what's in your mind's eye to the client in a way that is really literal and is something that they can see true to scale. So we have tens of thousands of users across the world. A big part of the immersive collaboration platform is allowing anyone from anywhere to join a review and to talk together as if they were standing on the job site. So we've seen a lot of success with the remote collaboration approach, having people from anywhere in the world come in. So all of that produces this. I'll show you what the product looks like when it's running. So here's a couple different segments of design review meetings happening in VR. This was filmed pre-COVID, so you will notice no masks and some slightly older headsets, but this is the experience you're getting in the headset. So you're in a shared virtual space. If time of day changes, or if you make a comment, or if you're talking with voice, all of that is synced. It's a shared state across all players in the space, so you're able to really understand the space and see what each person's doing. A big part of our focus here is preserving all the design data and all the metadata so that within each of these sessions, you're able to query all the information you need and make really effective decisions quickly. So that's the overview of Iris. I know for this panel, we are going to talk a bit about, of course, COVID and the impact of COVID as well. And I wanted to just take a little bit of time to just talk through what we've seen today and where we think it's going now. So we're a 20-person team. We're headquartered in New York. For us internally, COVID, of course, posed a lot of challenges being a New York City in-person company. So overnight, we moved to a remote first team and a remote first culture. And I think something that's been really amazing with VR and being able to sort of have everyone in our office have VR is we can do things like stand-ups in our office still. That's the top photo on the right. That's us doing a virtual stand-up in our software. And we do those daily. And then we're also doing things like team bonding sessions over Zoom, but also team bonding sessions in virtual reality apps like Rec Room and other games, but are really helpful for team bonding. So it's been a real journey for us internally to sort of transition to the remote first world. But I think our customers are experiencing this tenfold, right? There's now a socially distant job site. And on top of that, this real acceleration into digitization across the board and the need to transition those workflows. Another big trend that we've seen is suddenly sort of the VR demo room is a lot less applicable, and more customers and users are moving towards the need for personal headsets and VR devices in their own homes and in their own offices. So one way we address this out of the gate is we released more fully functional build of our app on desktop. So now without a headset, you can sort of get all of our functionality on your computer without needing to plug in any headset. And it's funny as a VR company to be focusing on full screen support, but this was really important, especially, I'm sure we'll talk about this, especially when hardware availability was limited. We were able to now have our customers go into a virtual environment, even if they don't have a headset, and engage in that meeting and make those decisions together. Now, recently, the Quest 2 has come out. Really excited about this device. It's probably sitting next to all of us on our desks right now. It's $300 if you're a consumer. If you are an enterprise firm, which likely everyone is here, and you have business use cases, there's Oculus for Business, which is essentially a layer on top of the Quest 2 that allows for enterprise-grade deployments. So you don't need to log in with Facebook. It has mobile device management. It has a lot better security, and it's a much easier way to manage Quest deployments. So really excited about the Quest 2 and all the functionality and speed it brings, but also Oculus for Business as a layer on top of it makes these deployments much more meaningful. And so where do we see this industry going as it reacts to COVID-19? On our side, we see immersive computing and sort of the layers of immersion that VR and soon AR will provide, really addressing a lot of the needs that the industry is facing. Of course, there's increased digitization across the board right now, but longer term, we're seeing more meaningful investments in offsite construction. So teams really thinking about, how many people do we need on site at once? And also what can we do offsite to accelerate the building process? And we see many of the immersive VR and AR trends forming right now, really accelerating the ability to make those decisions offsite and have fewer people on site at the same time. And then I figured I would just do a recent Google of looking at search trends over the last year. And I think that this is a good snapshot into what we've seen for VR demand in general as COVID swept through the world. March 15th saw a big uptick in searches for VR and for Oculus. And then with the Oculus Quest 2 launch, another huge surge in demand in November. So we're seeing VR really increase in demand as more and more people are remote and looking for ways to collaborate. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'm looking forward to the panel conversation.
All right, thank you, Shane. Next, we have Resolve.
All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Angel. I am the CEO and co-founder of Resolve. I may have interfaced with you at one point when our company was known as Insight VR, but that is now in the past. So Resolve is a complete rebrand and also a new product that I'll be telling you about today. The core premise is very similar, but a lot has changed, and we'll be diving into it deeper during the panel. But our software allows you to meet in VR so that you can improve your project communication and review process. So I don't want to dive too much into why VR or what VR does, because we've all been talking about it, but I do want to highlight what makes Resolve different. And so we'll just dive into three main points. The first is that we focus exclusively on standalone VR. So these headsets that are completely untethered, wireless, and don't need an external computer, we want to make it as simple as possible for you to use those headsets without giving up too much just because you're using an underpowered device. We also fully integrate with BIM 360 so that you have an end-to-end workflow of finding more issues, resolving the issues, and then following up. And in the future, thinking about other potential workflows, not just BIM 360. And we've also spent the last 2 years building a robust engine so that no matter the size of your project, you don't have to worry too much about diving into the world of polygons or decimation. We want it to just work out of the box. And I also think it's worth noting that as you hear presentations from all of us, in some senses, our software is competitive, but it's also worth noting that, especially as the VR market matures, companies are going to have to come to terms with the fact that there is going to be different software for different needs. I don't think there will be a one-size-fits-all for a while, just like there aren't desktop tools that handle both making Excel sheets, and also PowerPoint presentations. At the end of the day, we just want you to be able to use VR and extract value from it without actually noticing that the technology is there. So this video covers the Resolve workflow. Again, we're targeting the Oculus Quest here. So you see we have a Navisworks model. In this case, we don't have any native plugins for Navisworks or Revit anymore. Instead, it all syncs with the Autodesk BIM 360 cloud. So we add a button to the BIM 360 viewer that lets you then bring that model into a collaborative environment. And this allows us to support not just Revit and Navis, but really any 3D software that BIM 360 can host. And you saw there an animation of what's going on in the headset. We're basically streaming in what you need to see when you need to see it, and then providing you with tools so that you can review your model on these easy to use devices, of course, with your colleagues. They can be anywhere in the world, and you see them as avatars while you are in the model. Okay. So I want to dive a bit into the Oculus Quest because right now this is the target device for Resolve. It's an off-the-shelf headset, as has already been mentioned. There is a $299 consumer edition, but it does require a Facebook login. The $799 business edition does not require a Facebook login. It can be set into kiosk mode so that you lock down which applications can be launched on it. And it has device management. So your IT team can deploy updates at your own schedule and make sure you always keep track of the devices no matter where they are. Again, it is wireless and standalone, which means you don't need a computer to run this software. Everything runs on the device itself. You can basically think of the Quest as having a hidden cell phone in there, right? It has similar processing power to what a cell phone would have, and that makes it incredibly easy to set up. It's the first time that you can gift a Quest to someone or ship it to them, and they can unbox it probably within 10 minutes and be up and running with VR. You don't have to deploy, a fleet of IT specialists to get up and running. And because of this ease of use, we've decided to focus Resolve on the headset so that anybody can use it, whether they're an expert with Revit and Navisworks or have never even used an iPad before. But a big limitation of the Quest is the horsepower it has to open some of these models. And so we've done away with all of those concerns with Resolve, so you don't have to worry about model sizes and downsizing the model so that it runs on the headset. It lets you review the entire model. Just to reiterate some of what has been said and will probably be said throughout the night, at the end of the day, VR is about cost and time savings, and the way we see that manifest itself is improving engagement with BIM. So companies around the world are investing in these 3D assets, but a lot of times they get trapped on hard drives, right? Only one or two people really know how to access them, and they're used to produce construction documents, but like the rich 3D data remains a pretty untapped resource. So with VR, you can unlock that so more people can extract value from it, and that manifests itself in various ways. So a commonly reported benefit is that you can reduce RFIs and late stage design changes. And this just comes from noticing things when you're in VR that you might not notice on your desktop. One counterintuitive thing is that we see less technical users start to extract more value from the 3D models. So sometimes you get maintenance teams or field teams who shy away from 3D software, go into VR and be very vocal about the design changes that they want to see. Reiterating that operators and facilities staff can go into VR and very easily assess accessibility issues. This is one of the things that sometimes slips through the design and construction process, but from the owner operations perspective, if it takes you an extra 5 minutes to go grab a ladder to access something and you could have prevented that, that's going to add up in terms of overhead throughout the building life cycle. So if you go into VR, simulate what it's like to do repairs on the building, you maybe can catch and reduce some of that overhead. And finally, it improves decision-making time. You're in there, you can see it with your two eyes as if it were already built, and it just makes it a lot faster to come to a conclusion on what to do. I figured the best way to show you, the benefits of the tech is to talk about a local project. So this is the Virginia Hospital Center, which is in the area, and Skanska is currently using Resolve on this project. The ways they're using it, vary, but at the end of the day, again, it's all about extracting value from that 3D model. So they're doing visual inspection, especially while working remotely. This has gotten hard. Screen sharing a 3D model is not easy. They review the spaces, operating rooms, mechanical rooms, electrical rooms with the owner, the facilities teams, and the owner's rep. And they're also using it for their own internal clash resolution process. So this is a quick testimonial from one of our customers. It says to the benefits of using software like Resolve. Instead of opening 8 different views just to get everyone on the same page, you go into Resolve for, let's say, 5 minutes, everyone understands it, and you get back to work. So just to reiterate some of the key features here, when you're in Resolve, you can collaborate. You're going to see your colleagues as avatars. You have built-in voice communications as well, and everyone can see the same things no matter where you are in the world. You can mark the model up using the sketch tools. You can measure, and it's a very intuitive way of measuring with just pointing your hand at 2 points. You can extract all the BIM metadata from your model and read it on your tablet. And you can record speech-to-text comments. So if you find an issue, you say something out loud, and then you tag that. And that's critical to us because we want you to be able to follow up on these issues once you're outside of VR. And so what happens when you leave the meeting is you get a PDF report with screenshots of everything you commented on, but we also sync to BIM 360 issues so that you can use the assignment tools, the categorizing to follow up and make sure that these things actually get resolved. And one of the coolest things, which I'll end with, is that there's a Navisworks and Revit BIM 360 issues plugin. So you go into VR, you find an issue. In this case, I'm going to say review with the structural team, and then I will mark that up in the model, again, entirely in a wireless VR headset. So I make that comment right there. And now when I go out of VR, I will be able to review this comment directly inside of Revit, and so will my colleagues, right? It's all BIM 360, so we're all collaborating here. And so now, I can spend maybe an hour with 2 or 3 people in VR, and then the rest of my team can follow up on the issues that we found. So a very powerful workflow there. So that's it. I'm excited to answer more questions on the panel, but follow us at Resolve BIM or check out what we're doing at www.resolvebim.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Angel. Next, we have Spaceform.
Hey guys, let's see what's popping up. Hi, my name is Jon. I'm a director of Squint Opera and CEO of Spaceform, which is our. We're a lot newer, I think, than most of the people you're seeing tonight. But in order to best explain Spaceform, I first have to introduce the company Squint Opera and the studio responsible for the platform. We're a creative studio that communicates big ideas in complex urban projects. So over the last 20 years, we've been doing this primarily through film, animation.
Hey, sorry, not to interrupt, but are you trying to share slides or the document?
Yeah. Can you not see my slides?
No, we see the Google Doc.
Yeah, hang on a second. That's not good. Let's try this.
There we go.
There we go. It's a lot better looking. Okay, so we produce different kinds of digital content for use across all platforms to inform, engage an audience. Our work brings together storytelling, media production with technology and design. To best understand and connect with big and often complex proposals, we design human-centric experiences, focusing more on sensory haptic environments. So our work crosses over into experience design for sales suites and also visitor attractions and museums. We're always searching for new ways to enable a richer and deeper communication and understanding of new ideas. Our work includes designing media narratives to experience within a real space, often spaces which visitors can walk through in a simulated environment at one-to-one scale. Immersion and this human perspective really form the basis for Spaceform. So we've been developing this platform the last 3 years as our internal tool, and it's really to help people communicate complex projects remotely. So for many large-scale urban projects with often international teams, and these are the people we work for mainly, meeting face-to-face has been costly, time-consuming, and is unsustainable. And that's before COVID-19 hit. Since the pandemic, the urgent need for better remote communication is increasingly relevant, and we think Spaceform will help remote teams, investors, clients, and the public make better informed decisions. Because of the kind of clients we have and the projects we work on, this had to be without compromises. We have to be able to dial up the visual quality and also make it work as a collaborative environment for design teams iterating their next big idea. So we asked ourselves that on some level, what if reviewing projects virtually is an opportunity to be more effective than presenting face-to-face? Spaceform is essentially an immersive review and collaboration platform for big ideas. And after a few years consulting with the AEC industry, we realized that we had to build a product that worked across the platforms both they and their clients had ready access to. So our recommended platform is still VR. We all know how it brings the next level of engagement and understanding around 3D design. However, we've also focused on the desktop user experience, especially recently. If our client wants to output stills and video content, it gives them the best visual quality. And even more recently, this year, we've integrated a streaming solution that opens up the platform to anyone with a browser, so that anyone with a screen essentially can be a participant within the space. So we now focus on helping remote teams to visualize projects together on any device, VR, headset, desktop, mobile, or tablet, and engaging audiences in 3D projects with immersive presentations for up to 100 people. A presentation platform to review collaborations and collaborate on big ideas together. So it's a smart platform that connects remote projects and teams together in the same virtual space. Set up a project with the room settings, project assets, information, imagery, create user profiles, import 3D models and data sets, and upload it all to the cloud, and your attendees jump into a virtual Spaceform room. So I'm now going to play a quick video of one of our demos, just to give you a little idea or a sense of how the software works. So this is the project room, which everything's super flexible. You can update all the assets within there within seconds. We've kind of really focused on, so we've got, obviously it's in VR as our primary thing, but also on the desktop, we've got some really beautiful camera features to really focus in on details. And this is a really cool concept of ours around the table. And we found this to be a really good, over the years, to be a really good way to sort of get people together and collaborate in virtual reality. This project, I'll give you 10 points if you recognize the site somewhere. For those of you that live in New York, you might have a clue. We've got all sorts of live data that we can bring in. This is a simulation of that live data in this particular demo. We can obviously bring in, whether it's wind simulations or people, populations, traffic, that kind of thing. And then we jump to one-to-one scale, which of course is the magic of VR, is this kind of real getting the sense of the human one-to-one feeling of space. This is up at the 35th floor in the site. Got dynamic sun in there. You've got that kind of ability to pick and choose materials, which a lot of our clients really respond to. And then we can bring in all the metadata behind all those materials as well, costs and all that kind of stuff. And then kind of finally, we can change floor plans on the fly, all the good stuff that real-time engines bring to the party. So that gives you a little clue as to, or a little hint of what we do. So we spent a lot of time researching, thinking, and iterating what would be the best environment for collaboration. Everything we learned about virtual meetings and collaboration pointed us towards having a single focus area that everyone can gather around. And we're especially talking about design phase architecture here. And after speaking with a lot of architects, we also wanted to reintroduce the concept of a project room where teams can be fully immersed in a single project. And this is an old idea that we're kind of rethinking about for the virtual space. And with the high cost of real estate and agile teams, these dedicated spaces are no longer practical in most modern studios. So within Spaceform, there are all sorts of functionality. You've got presentation tools. You can guide your audience through a project. You've got multi-user support, as we talked about, scale and zoom controls, markup and sketch, project models. And I think a lot of this we share between all the people on the panel here. We can also got all this kind of very quick ways to bring in media and capture stills and video. And that's becoming quite an interesting use case for us recently. So we're working with some major engineering companies to bring in and view simulation data, such as energy, people, traffic, climate conditions, wind and sunlight. And we think there's exciting opportunities to connect design, intent and site-specific data to make it all viewable in a collaborative platform such as ours. So jumping down to one-to-one human perspective in virtual spaces allows us to walk through the environment before it's built. And this is where the VR experience really comes to life, and you can really engage, especially end clients, in some of that design intent. We've had very positive responses from architects and their clients across all our platforms recently, though, because not everyone's got VR sets at home. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later. So currently we're still in beta, but working on some exciting enterprise projects of the platform at the moment. But a lot of the work that you see there still involves a fair bit of our time and input to get these projects together. But in the near future, the platform will become much more standalone product that designers and product teams will be able to use, populate themselves to create engaging, immersive presentations for mass audiences. We see this having a wider application across design and engineering presentations, public consultations, investor and stakeholder relations, and sales and marketing uses. So finally, I'd like to share a quick case study of our work with Spaceform, the recently completed Empire State Experience. Squint Opera won the project a couple of years ago, and we used an early iteration of Spaceform to help with the design process. So our role was developing the media, digital and immersive experiences that as visitors made the top. Effectively, we kind of called it entertaining the snake, which was the big queue that went all the way through the building. As you can see, it was a lot, and this is just one floor of the 3 that we helped develop the experience on. Working with the experience designers, we had to communicate with the client and get sign-off on a large number of individual experiences along the journey. At first, we used slideshows, video and stills, but nothing really gave the client enough information and a sense of scale needed to approve the content we were making. Then we hit across using VR, and after a bit of persuading, the client jumped in, loved it, and the rest is a bit of history. He's got completely sold on the idea, insisted that all future reviews had to be done in this way. And it's the only way that we could sign off the content on the project. And also, because the client was highly mobile, we had to do this remotely, and that's kind of where we started to learn our chops with the remote team collaboration system. So here's a little video of it in action on that project, little clip. So an interesting aspect of this project was that much of what we designed and built had to work both as a physical exciting experience and look good through a camera lens. Social media is super important for such an experience. So we got very meta towards the end of the project as we were discussing the pros and cons of what looked like the best, what will look best inside a virtual camera screen inside of the virtual experience we built. So that was a lot of fun. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for spending the time to have a look at our product. And we'd love to get your feedback, and we're also open for demos if anybody wants to get in touch after this event. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Jan. Last but not least, we have the Wild.
All right, terrific. Thank you very much. Hopefully I get spotlighted here. All right, so I'm Gabe Paez, founder and CEO of The Wild. I'm super excited to be here and have this conversation with all these industry leaders. You know, at The Wild, we really focus on immersive collaboration from anywhere on any device. This is collaboration for your teams in augmented and virtual reality. So what that really means for the wild and really how we sort of differentiate ourselves is to virtualize travel with these workspaces in the cloud, have everything cloud-based, everything real time, and try to you know, thread this needle between a one-click solution and something that's fully customizable and can really be a source of a true workspace for your team. So not just being able to design, not just being able to review, but really being able to work together inside of these virtual spaces. So design teams today are facing unique challenges with employees working remotely and clients that you can't always fly to go see. So what we've seen is that screen sharing, PDFs, and video conferencing just really aren't enough to visualize these complex ideas. And so that's why in the wild, we're just trying to activate that content through immersive collaboration. So it all starts with an invitation, honestly. We want to do a simple one-click invite to bring anyone on any team into the wild, whether they have their own team in the wild, whether they're a client, whether they're on your team. It's a big part of the wild is how you can organize and share these workspaces amongst all of those people who care about this content. The wild supports, of course, VR headsets, standard Windows-based devices like the Vive Pro, the Vive, the Oculus Rift S, but also these new wireless devices, standalone devices like the Quest and the Quest 2. Additionally, you can get in there on Windows and Mac. That's one of our differentiators. We have a lot of our customers working in SketchUp on a Mac. They can utilize the wild, especially with a standalone headset like a Quest 2, very common workflow for us. And it just creates a really nice, lightweight workflow to get your content in and out of this virtual space. And then last, we've got augmented reality. And this is deployed in iOS on either an iPhone or an iPad. You can utilize the wild to augment an entire virtual space into the physical space that you're standing inside of. So in virtual reality, which is primarily how people utilize the wild, you can move around, you can transport yourself to any angle or any scale that you want. We really want there to be a fluidity in how people utilize the wild and move around and between different spaces inside of the wild. If you want to move between spaces or these workspaces, you grab a portal and hop right in. And it's really simple to move your whole team between different locations. Our design review tools allow you to quickly comment and mark up live to spatially communicate better and just align with your team. So you can utilize these different markup tools, not just annotations like you're seeing there, but voice to text comments, and embed all of those into the model, whatever that may be. So getting a little bit into BIM and our BIM tools, we've got a measure tool, we've got an inspect tool, all of these different BIM-based tools to let you unlock the data that's underlying all of these spaces. The wild is, it's not just a one-to-one where you're bringing one Revit model into a space. You can have a composite, sort of like you have in Navisworks, where you can bring multiple models from SketchUp, from Revit, from all these different sources, standalone models into one space, and you can explore them all in aggregate. So data is of course an important part of this, and we're finding new ways to unlock this data, which I'll show you at the end of my presentation in our latest feature. So the fun part for me, and what a lot of people really love about the wild, is it's a creative place to prototype not just your buildings, but creating true meeting spaces, mood boards, concept sketches. The wild is a real flexible workspace where you can combine all of this content into one interactive space. You can also create a series of spaces that'll guide you through a progression of increasing complexity, increasing dimensions, finding ways to view these spaces through different means, all within this one meeting or one work session. So on the integration side, we integrate with Revit, BIM 360, SketchUp. We've got 28 other file formats, including 2D formats like videos and different image types. Again, we want you to be able to bring all of this into the same space and work with it as one, so that you have access to all of your content. The content management piece is important too. So the Wild does allow you to import and organize content inside of the Wild, but this is where BIM 360 becomes really powerful. With the Wild and BIM 360, you can access any of your models stored in BIM 360, not just your Revit models, but any individual objects, furniture, entourage, and so forth, and you can drag them directly from BIM 360 and activate them inside of the Wild. So finally, looking at a better view of our augmented reality experience and how you can really take these spaces in the Wild and you can augment them into the physical room that you're inside of. This is a super powerful means of really exploring this data, especially if you have access to the site. Allowing you, we've had customers who on empty lots are taking their iPad, they're walking the entire building before you've even laid the foundation. And you're doing this connected to anyone else inside of the Wild at the very same time. So if you have designers in New York City, they're inside of that model, they can talk to that person that is exploring the site, make, tracking changes that you want to make, making alterations, and live exploring new ideas in conjunction with the physical environment. So last, I want to introduce you to our latest feature, and I'm super excited about this. We just launched this yesterday, and we're calling it custom apps. And what it basically is a development environment for the Wild to allow you to extend the Wild with your own custom apps that are built with standard web technologies, but activated inside of a space in the Wild. And to do this, I'm going to jump live over to the Wild. So this is a live view of this space inside of the Wild, and Austin is going to join us. Hello, Austin.
Hello, Gabe.
Okay.
Hello, everyone at AIA.
So Austin is over at his house, and so we're spread across space, but joined together right here inside of the Wild. And we are going to dive into this stadium to show you this latest feature. So I'm just going to navigate myself down here. And you'll see that inside of a space in the Wild, you have full access to move around. You can navigate this environment. Jumping down into immersive mode takes me into 1-to-1 scale. Austin's going to place one of these applications that we've put up on that giant screen in the distance. So basically what you're seeing here is a number, I guess there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different applications that are all going to be able to talk to each other through the Wild. Now, these are all built using standard web technologies, React, if you guys are familiar, but you can really use whatever your development team is comfortable with. Now, through this integration, we're able to change the team branding of this space in real time. So Austin's able to change it to the Patriots, change it to Falcons, change it to Oregon. And, we're all having this connected experience. It's not just happening on one of these devices, but they're communicating with each other. This is just the first step of what we're doing here. Shortly you're going to see from us where you're going to be able to both access and manipulate the objects inside of the BIM model in the space, so that you can do all sorts of things, everything from your own custom issue tracking to heat maps of the space, so that you can do studies of people moving through the space. There are all sorts of possibilities of what you could create when you have access not to all of the data, not just the BIM data, but the data of the people inside of the space as well. And you can stream that back to your services. So to sort of show this off even more, Austin has, or yesterday actually, we created our own little custom app, which basically takes any desktop and streams that into the wild. So Austin is going to grab my computer stream that is going directly from my device or one of my computers here in my office. And basically I've got Revit running. We've got this Stadium open, and you can see that essentially we have this live connection to that Revit model inside of the wild. And this is running in real time, connected, and I'm able to live make changes to my desktop here. So just sort of showing how you can leverage this technology to create all new interactions, not just bringing these desktop apps inside of the wild, but allowing those applications to literally communicate with content inside of the wild. So I am going to leave it there. Thank you, guys. I'm excited to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thanks, Gabe. Thanks, everyone. Those were really interesting presentations. I think it's really cool to see how much there is in common and how much there is different. I think it shows just how broad the AEC industry is and the opportunities are for VR implementation. So we're going to move into the second portion of the evening, which is going to be a roundtable discussion. We have a couple of prepared questions, and we're also going to be taking Q&A from participants. And David, feel free to jump in at any point. So the first couple of questions that we have are all just around, the current COVID situation, work from home, hybrid environments, and just wanted to get you guys' take on how either that's affected you guys or what you're hearing from end users and customers, and just how you think this is impacting the way people in AEC are using VR. So I'll open it up to whoever wants to take a stab at that.
Sure, I'll start. We were talking about this a bit offline before the webinar started, but I think one of the most interesting things happening post-COVID is that it's really not socially acceptable to share headsets anymore. And I think someone else alluded to this in their presentation that, for the last few years, this idea of a VR room, like a dedicated station, has been really common, but that all fell apart as people started working remotely. And so we're seeing folks left with two options, right? Either you bring that VR room to you, but it's a little hard to scale when everyone is working from home, or you shift to desktop tools. And so I think we're starting to see a bit of a hybrid of the two, where you use these standalone devices at home because they're easy to use, and you supplement that with desktop tools as well. But I think it's important to note that just because you're working from home doesn't mean you're out of luck with VR. You ought to give the standalone devices a shot.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think it's almost the opposite, where working from home is really our superpower, is that we have this technology to be able to meet in a new and impactful way. I think everyone right now has experienced Zoom fatigue, and you can only do so much sitting and talking to these screens before it just wears on your psyche. Standing up, being activated in VR, moving around, it feels good. And also, I'm gonna be honest, like, there was always this challenge of in office spaces and shared office spaces, the idea of how are we going to utilize virtual reality. Does everyone need a separate conference room to go stand inside of, to be able to move and physically move and activate themselves? Are you going to be doing that just at your desk sitting down? I think in many ways now you can set up a very clean, nice workspace to meet with and activate your team in virtual reality from your home office, whatever space you might have.
I think that's coupled with a trend that's been happening, but sort of accelerated even while COVID happened, which is just everything's getting lighter and faster. A couple of years ago, there really wasn't an option for really true personalized headset deployments. People tried. We've seen customers try, of everyone getting, a full PC VR rig set up. lot of investments in 1080 Ti's, but now with like Quest, but especially Quest 2, everything's getting smaller, everything's getting lighter, and it frankly came out sort of right at the right time when the market was really looking for something. The initial Quest, everyone on this call will know this very well. It really sold out last November. There was a big demand for it before the holidays, and then COVID hit, and like sort of the supply chain didn't return. So people were getting really creative on like Amazon and eBay, and it was just kind of messy. And now there's hardware availability, and it's much lighter weight, and it's much more affordable than it used to be. So that, coupled with what Angel and Gabe are saying, means that suddenly the demand can be met, and it's at a price point that people can actually move forward with.
What I think also helped in here is the accessibility of the technology itself. I think everyone still remembers setting up the Vive, and that you have to do all these things and the cables, and it just the experience of setting up the VR space itself and installing an app and everything got so much easier now in these last couple of years. So just to get into this is also getting a lot easier now with these new technology improvements.
Yeah, I agree with all that. We found that our clients generally have got quite well, they've embraced the work from home, and they've embraced a lot of VR at home, which is really cool. And they've either got the Quest, or they've got a proper full PC rig at home. Wonderful. But what we've also found is their clients, some of them have embraced it, some of them haven't. That's why we pivoted a little bit in March to also open up other platforms very quickly, because I think VR's got a very strong use case. We love it. I think all of us here on the panel love VR, but some of our clients have they struggle with the technology or that. So that was an interesting challenge for us over the last few months.
I think that's an important point too, of like also when COVID happened, the client meeting fundamentally changed, and so much of the architecture process I've seen back in my architecture days is and with our customers is so much of that client interaction is about the in-person engagement. And I think VR is one way in a suite of tools to sort of help the client all still understand what's happening through their project in a remote context. But that I think also reinforces the fact that we are all not new to VR on this call, and probably most people in this webinar are not new to it. But for the vast majority of people, opening up a headset box or putting it on, it's brand new. It's their first experience. Maybe they tried their kids' PSVR, which happens with some frequency before they put on a Quest for enterprise use. But pretty much everyone's going into it completely fresh and completely new, which I think in the COVID era, there's more challenges around if a firm has a VR evangelist or someone who's really in the weeds with it. It was a lot easier for them to set up people when they were in the same office together. So now there's new challenges around sort of how do you get a remote office with remote clients really ready with their VR legs and on stable ground. And I think everyone's presentation talked about ease of use and making it just simpler on the software side. I think the hardware side is still catching up to that.
One point to echo some of Shane's comment from a sort of practitioner point of view, where we're working to implement new technology, is some aspects are definitely harder as far as getting people set up. But I find that people are so much more eager and willing to try new technology right now. So in some ways it's difficult, but in other ways it's really amazing, the willingness of our team members to want to try out something new.
I think it was one of the more interesting experiences that we had kind of early on during COVID was when we kind of were helping one of our beta testers to use Archeo for a major client pitch and kind of helping them prepare for that, and then basically being part of that pitch where everybody was working remotely was a pretty kind of surreal experience, big Zoom call with 20 people and live presentations from inside Archeo. So that was a pretty kind of eye-opening in terms of, people are really ready to embrace new technologies when they really need it. And I think that COVID really has shown kind of that, we need to have these kind of technologies available.
I think that segues nicely into one of the questions I was asked, which is, in most of the presentations, the Oculus brand is the most referred to headset. What's the reasoning behind that instead of Samsung or Microsoft VR headsets? And I think, I mean, part of it, it's affordable, it's lightweight, it's easy to use, it's not tethered. But maybe you guys can expand on where the Oculus fits into your business model compared to other headsets, or even using a desktop, as some of you were mentioning. And also maybe just a little bit about the difference between a personal VR headset that you might have someone go buy the Oculus headset versus the Facebook for business, and what some of those considerations might be for someone looking to deploy it at the enterprise scale.
I think the first and foremost, it comes down to ease of use, and what Oculus has done is truly astonishing. Like the speed at which they are advancing and improving the quality of the device, the quality of the software on the device, the quality of the ecosystem they've built is just, you know, it's amazing. It's great for all of us. I would say all of us, you know, have a big debt to pay to Oculus at this point, because what they have done and the speed at which they've done it has really enabled our companies to do what we do. And so I think that's, you know, primarily for us why we celebrate it, just like we would celebrate any advancement in the industry. That being said, I think that a healthy hardware industry is going to be diverse, and there are many different teams there, you know, on the client side that have many different, you know, needs. And so that's why we try to have wide support across the other headsets as well. And there are other players that, you know, are notable and up and coming, and, you know, could compete against Oculus in the near future here. So I think there's a lot to be excited about across the whole ecosystem. We're all excited right now about especially the Quest 2, because it just launched. But there's a lot of movement happening right now in virtual reality across all of the different manufacturers. And so stay tuned to see what 2021, 2022 hold.
I think the Oculus, like the developments that have been doing over the last few years, it's also a bit of a kick in the butt for most of the other manufacturers. And there's stories now about, for example, the Valve. They also want to get rid of the sensors, and they want to also make it easier. And so like this, like Oculus, they kind of set the stage for all the other headsets to now keep up to the new standards.
I think one other thing to consider, I think I saw in the question they asked, you know, what about other headsets like Samsung, Microsoft, HTC? Desktop peripherals are not easy, and this is like speaking more broadly, not even about VR. I'm sure we've all been on Zoom or Teams meetings over the last few months where people can't get their microphone to work, can't get your headphones to work. There's just something fundamentally flawed about drivers on the operating system, and that's going to extend it to VR, right? So you don't want people fiddling with having to restart their computer to install drivers and figure out what's going on, just so that they can do their job. And so for us, you know, that's part of the driver to really focusing on standalone. If it works out of the box very, very well, that's the path we want to follow. And the reality is, as folks have said, right now Oculus has set the bar really high. I'm sure other folks will enter the space, but for now, Oculus does that very, very well.
And do you think how much of a space do you think there is for people to be joining from other devices? So desktops, mobile phones, AR, mixed reality, kind of broadening it beyond, I think, the pure VR in order to include more people, since it's been, you know, can't share headsets, not necessarily going to ship them out to everyone.
Well, we've been super impressed with some of the streaming tech that's come on. So we're hosting our applications, streaming it from the cloud, and we've found that to be an exceptional experience in, you know, Chrome or Safari browsers. And yeah, we're very excited by that. I mean, I concur with what everyone said about Oculus. They really are leading the field, but we also We're also working a little bit with some really high-end devices like Baho, and the Norwegian company. We've had one of their devices for a little bit, and some of our clients, they're willing to go and just say, look, what is the absolute ultimate way that we can feel this experience in VR? And that's exciting for us, and a kind of just pushing the technology as far as it can go, getting the most amount of pixels on screen at one time. At the same time, we also love the idea of this kind of democratization of VR. So we're trying to balance those two elements out. So it's always going to be a bit of a challenge to do that, but it's exciting.
I think for us, working on practically any device has been very important from the beginning. Basically, now we're at the point where in Archeo you have most of the modeling tools available, whether you're using a phone or a tablet or in VR. Ultimately, people want to just be able to jump into a design session, depending kind of on which device they want to use at any point in time, depending on where they are and their situation. So we feel this is critical, kind of to get people kind of onboarded with using technologies like this. Not everybody wants to put on a headset. Not everybody has a headset. So this is absolutely key. And regarding the Quest itself, we feel that this is such an important device, and this is one of, many that will come, many more standalone devices like this, because it makes everything so approachable. It's always within reach wherever you are. And from the very beginning, we've been putting a lot of emphasis on making Archeo, all the real-time modeling, work on these mobile VR devices, which is tricky. I mean, it's tricky to get these big models working on these devices, to get all these kind of real-time modeling operations working. But ultimately, this is kind of where the market will be at. And arguably, the Quest 1, especially the 2, is the first kind of mainstream VR device that we've seen, I would say.
I promise none of us are paid by Oculus or Facebook.
This was touched on a little bit, but I think the space for desktop VR long term is in the ultra premium, right? Is there will always be higher resolution and higher frame rates and just more beautiful experiences possible on something desktop driven, even as streaming gets better, even as we're doing remote rendering. There will always be a space for desktop. I think it's going to get increasingly premium pretty quickly. I think especially now with Quest 2, there's a strong case to be made for standalone in most cases until sort of the premium desktop market catches up. So, there's definitely a space for that. I think there's also space for someone to figure out more open platform. And there's a lot of attempts right now. Facebook and Oculus are wonderful devices, and we are kind of all salespeople for them at this point because we're building our platforms on them. But we also, speaking for Iris, probably everyone here feels this way. There's a real need for some standardization and some openness in the ecosystem, and it's been a moving target so far. And there's some excitement coming out of OpenXR, and Steam VR did a lot in the early days, and we'll see sort of where that goes. But there's still the promise someday of a more centralized solution that we can all build on top of.
Zahn, I saw a question come through asking about the future of security for VR, especially in DC. We've got a lot of government clients that don't want things hosted on the cloud. There are lots of sensitive projects that want to use VR environments, but can't allow outside companies to host models on the cloud. Does anyone want to comment on that one?
Well, we do a lot of local. It's a kind of weird hybrid of kind of local but collaborative as well. So people will actually be in different rooms in the same building, but on a closed network. And we just recently did one in the Middle East like that one, in fact, 2 weeks ago. Super secure stuff. It's all locked down. The nice thing is that our tech anyway can move locally or can move up in the cloud, and it's a real hybrid of the two. So that's one way to do it. I mean, my strong preference, if we can ever persuade the kind of government level security people, is to actually say, well, look, some cloud can actually be bulletproof, well, as bulletproof as local, because fundamentally all computer systems have got their own security wrongs and rights. So there's never any perfect security, but I think you can get some very, very strong cloud now. So but I get that we get asked that a lot.
This is actually a new thing for us. Just a couple months ago, we opened up a private cloud solution for these companies that are working on a lockdown intranet. It's sort of the best of both worlds in the sense that you can still have a connected, rich experience built off of collaboration, but host that within a secure environment that your IT team controls. And so that's our approach to it. Of course, taking security, and I think, I mean, even Shane brought this up in his presentation. It's a super important part of this, is making sure we're entrusted with confidential data that needs to remain secure at all points in storage and transit. And so taking it seriously, both for a public cloud hosted solution, but also for a private cloud where the client can exert a little bit more control around how it's being deployed and where it can be accessed from on their network.
In the case of Archeo, just to kind of shed a bit of light on that, most of the processing happens locally on the device, and we basically use the cloud to send the events across, but not the models themselves, just kind of deltas for the model data. So in that way, Archeo is a pretty secure approach for those kind of projects.
The hardware layer is taking it more seriously now too, and it's more recognized formally. Again, Oculus for Business is meeting more strict security standards. And like I was just reading an announcement from HTC Vive, they have a more secure version of the Vive now that they're putting forward. So it's clearly coming. I mean, I think it's one of the best signs of adoption in this industry for VR is I think a lot of folks can sort of in the pilot days can sort of skirt around some of the requirements they might need. But the second it becomes a real deployment and the second VR becomes a more serious thought internally and pursuit internally, suddenly the security requirements are usually pretty strict. And so, yes, comes up all the time. It's one of the reasons we kept an option for local files and local projects, even as we moved from more collaboration layer stuff. There's still an option to stay local. And that's at least a good short-term solution as other things are worked on for security.
I think there's also an element here of this is something that a lot of companies are grappling with independent of VR. Like when everyone started working from home, Zoom got some flack for security reasons, whether you're using BIM 360 or whatever, like file syncing you're using, there's always a risk there. But yeah, as we move towards more remote work, I think independent of VR, security is a really important question for the cloud.
Yeah, I think we've, considering, I guess, a lot of the hardware discussions, I wanted to ask about the BIM 360 side of things. So I think, a lot of times, we're dependent on how open is Autodesk and BIM 360. I know there's the Forge platform and other ways to plug into it, but how have you guys seen the prevalence of BIM 360 affecting the VR and integration with it? Is that core? Is that one of, you offer it along with SketchUp and others, or is it kind of central? And where do you think that's going to go moving forward?
I think, so for us, we did drop support for a lot of the other platforms with Resolve, so things like SketchUp or like native integrations. And part of our rationale was that, as you build on top of a BIM 360 workflow, it does become a very centralized place where not only are you hosting models, but it becomes synonymous with collaboration for things like issue tracking, RFIs, ops. And so we see it as a really good entry point right now. It is, though, it's one workflow, right? Like there are other workflows. People use Procore to host their BIM files and to track issues. People use BIM Track for tracking issues. I think what's interesting about BIM 360 for us is, it's an end-to-end workflow, and it's a way to give people the option to not have to worry too much about, sending data to yet another cloud service and having to consolidate issues from one place with their traditional issue tracking tools. But I think, we'll probably start to see other workflows come up as well.
David, were you about to read the question?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, we have another question came in. Can anyone acquire VR training outside of the office environment? I'm going to expand on that too and say, do you guys provide training for your various solutions, or is it super easy to just go ahead and get started? And just maybe broadening it beyond, what kind of recommendations do you guys have for someone who wants to implement VR brand new into their office, and what considerations do you think they should take into account?
This is a great question, and one I think that often gets overlooked. It's not just the initial deployment, but the expansion, how you roll out the wild, or not just the wild, but any software to an entire team. And I think most of us take a multi-pronged approach where there's going to be in-app onboarding, of course, but at least with the wild, the beauty of a collaboration tool is you can use that tool to collaborate with a support team on the other side. And so we meet every day with customers, new users, old users inside of the wild, inside of their spaces, to help show them how to work better together. And I think you'll see more and more of that happening, where we leverage, we're creating a whole new channel for communication here. It's not just about visualization of a model. It's not just about design. We're creating a way to talk and communicate and experience ideas together. And support is one, manifestation of that, a way that we can teach someone how to utilize the software, and in doing so, they can then utilize that to communicate their ideas. So I think that's what I get so excited about what we're doing. That's what really is so different and special about working in this industry, especially right now, is we're evolving the way communication happens between humans. And it's a great opportunity to be at a place and a privilege that we can help contribute to that.
Yeah, and I'd like to join in with that statement. It's very helpful to be able to provide support in just such a way. Like if you would have to do all of these support cases using Zoom or trying to send an email, it's so much faster and easier to just show people how things work, or to show a bug live in front of you, and get people familiar with tools. And especially a tool like Archeo is still in heavy development. We don't have like a huge help center and every tutorial sorted out yet. So a lot of people just start by fiddling around a bit. But it's very helpful to just join in with some of these starting users, just show them the ropes, how things work. And if there's any questions or feedback about the app, it's very useful to just have that in the app itself, because you can literally see what the other people are doing and respond to that.
I would just add one thing too, from the architecture firm side is, we've just actually started for the first time. We sent a quest out to a client and let them sort of unbox it and start working. And it's really, again, sort of a plug for the quest, but it's really amazing that we can send that out to them, have them up and running in a half an hour, and in VR with us. In a building that we're designing for them. So, again, I think the amazing thing probably about all the tools that were shown today is they can be super simple to use, and the hardware is really improving rapidly as well.
Yeah, the beauty, I was going to say, the beauty of VR is it often is more instinctive to use than some desktop software platforms, just because it's much more physical and it's been designed in such a way to interact with that. So for us, we look at sort of 2 or 3 different levels of user. There's the kind of collaborator or participant who just jump in, and we kind of limit the tool palette, but they usually get to know it. And that first space we've built is all about them just getting to used to walking around and using the different sort of simple controls, whether it's measuring or the laser pointer. And you usually pick that up. We kind of tend to wander around with people in those first meetings, and then we train our clients to do that. And I think we've all hit on that as being such a warm and great way to get people engaged in the platform, that it just feels very human to actually stand next to someone and just say, if you press this button, you get this reaction. It's just a really great way to offer support.
And just on the training and sort of onboarding front, I mean, we really early on invested pretty heavily in customer experience and sort of spun up that department as a group of people and as a team internally for us pretty early on, especially in the early days when VR had a lot more setup. But now I think increasingly it's really helping our customers define what success actually means. I think usually there's interest in VR for some reason outside of just VR for the sake of VR. That's a great start. And then ultimately, how do you have an engagement sort of in the headset where you stop talking about the headset, and what does success mean within that? What does deployment mean within that? And as everything gets easier to use, it still helps a lot. We've found to have people on our side as resources and running trainings and running teams through everything that can be accomplished in there. So I think I think it's frontier technology. There is an inherent investment in training and success, no matter how easy the tool is to use, but that's super important to really see real engagement and real adoption in this space.
Nervous. It looks like we're coming close to the top of the hour, so just wanted to give you guys a chance for final thoughts, closing thoughts before we wrap it up.
This was really fun. It was great to see. It was great to see the consolidation of all these tools in one presentation. So thank you for organizing. And my plug is I think we all have trials. So I think everyone on the webinar should try everyone's tools. And to Angel's point, there's strengths in each. We are obviously all very keen on our own, but try them out.
Absolutely, concur. Thanks, Shane.
Also, I think it's good for also participants, if they're interested, just try all of our solutions, of course, but also think a bit outside the box. Like, it's not only for just the professional architecture. It can also be for your own home. It can be for schooling, for education. Like, there's so many opportunities how we can use this software. So just try it out and see how we can help.
Yeah.
Agree with. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm going to agree with all that. I think just try it all out. It's the only way to really get your hands on it, really get a feel for it. And also, thanks so much for inviting us to the panel. It's great to be with you guys. It's been really interesting, really good discussion.
Yeah, thanks for hosting this. If I had any parting words, I don't know if there's anyone with this attitude on the call, but if you're jaded by VR because you tried it 4 years ago and it wasn't what you thought, it's come a long way. So give it a second chance. Yeah, I think one of our software will change your life.
Well, thank you all.
Fundamentally, that we believe VR will change a lot of things for the AEC industry. And I think what past experience has shown that this really is like here to stay, and this will only kind of grow bigger in the next few years. So like, stay tuned. There's a lot more to come as well.
Best is yet to come. Thanks.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining. I think this has been a great conversation. I've definitely learned a lot. I hope everyone else has found benefit as well. And stay tuned for more of these types of events.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah.